So, looking at the Grade 8, the top 8 national seeds, 6 automatic qualifiers, a combined record of 81-12 between the 8 schools, 5 combined FCS championships, and both the Missouri Valley and the Colonial have 2 teams each. Coastal Carolina and Illinois State, the 2 teams getting at-large bids. Craig, you look at the top 8 teams. How do you assess the 8 national seeds?
I think it's a really strong group because you look at, obviously, North Dakota State at the top. Their resume is very impressive. They come in at a number 2 seed. Then you look at New Hampshire at number 1. They didn't have a very strong 2013, but they were able to get into the playoffs. And then once they did, they made a run. And I think anytime you get these programs like a New Hampshire, North Dakota State that have been there before, Jay, and made it, they understand it. And now you get some of these teams out there having their strong years, their top players are performing. I think this is probably one of the more wide open races we've had for at least 2 or 3 years.
It is, and when you talk about the star players, that's what it's about this time of year. What I like about the top 8 seeds, there are plenty of star players. Out of the 8 teams, 7 of them have finalists for the Peyton Award. That's the Heisman Trophy for FCS football. That's where your best players are. So you've got the big-time players that are going to show up. Names like John Robertson, the quarterback from Villanova that you may not be used to. Jacob Huseman from Chattanooga. Get to know these names. These are big-time players. They're guys that can carry their team to a championship.
Yeah, and of course, the biggest thing with those 8 national seeds, the top 8 seeds, a first-round bye. So they get to wait, see, scout, and assess all the teams that will be playing in the first round. Without further ado, let's start to reveal the first-round matchups. Fordham will take on Sacred Heart this coming Saturday, noon Eastern on ESPN3. Fordham, the Patriot League champ. Sacred Heart, the Northeastern Conference champions. This is a rematch of a first-round game from a year ago. The winner of Fordham, Sacred Heart, will take on New Hampshire. Anish Shroff, Craig Harbert, Jay Walker. It's the FCS Selection show. It continues. We revealed the first half of the bracket. It's time now to reveal the second half of the bracket, looking at the remaining first-round games. Villanova will play the winner of James Madison and Liberty. That game will be at James Madison. The Dukes, the 3rd team from the Colonial. Liberty with its first ever FCS playoff appearance. It also means we could potentially have an all-CAA matchup in the second round with James Madison and Nova.
Absolutely. Big opportunity for Liberty, finishing the season strong. But for me, James Madison is one of those sleeper teams. They're coming in winning 7 in a row. They're very hot. Their quarterback is Vad Lee. He was one of the top prospects coming out of the 2011 class, signed with Georgia Tech. He is now with the Dukes. He's an explosive runner, a very good passer. Their defense is not what it used to be 4 or 5 years ago, but players like Captain Sage Harold, that young man is a really good player, makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. So watch out for James Madison throughout this tournament.
Villanova, by the way, beat James Madison 49-31 back in September. Let's continue to reveal more of the first-round matchups. Richmond, the 4th team out of the Colonial, will take on Morgan State, the AQJ out of the MEAC.
Surprise, surprise. Morgan State is in the FCS playoffs. I never thought I would say that during my lifetime. The Bears have been in hibernation for decades, but they're back, led by their running back, Herb Walker. He's a fantastic one. And you've also got Richmond, had to win the game versus William & Mary yesterday to keep their season alive. Give the Spiders credit. They won a must-win football game. Their season continues.
And Coastal Carolina will get the winner of that. Let's pick up the conversation there. North Dakota State, even though they're the 2 seed, I think everybody still looks at the Bison as the team to beat. Who can knock off North Dakota State?
I think you got to start with the number 1 team, and that is New Hampshire. And the reason why I say that, not just because they're the number 1 seed, but I think in many ways they're like North Dakota State. They do things very well. They're a well-oiled machine on the offensive side of the ball. Sean Goldrich has back after missing some time with an injury. Wide receiver R.J. Harris is an absolute stud, 79 catches, 1,200 yards. They're also very good on special teams as well. You know, I look for that team potentially in the first round that can go in and make some noise. I said it earlier. I think James Madison is one of those teams that's very hot coming in and very dangerous. It's not just about Vad Lee, but he gives them an outstanding weapon at that position. On the defensive side of the ball, they're doing a nice job creating turnovers, making plays behind the line of scrimmage. If they can get hot and continue to get hot, watch out for James Madison.
You mentioned Vad Lee, you mentioned Vernon Adams. this time of the year, a singular player can have a significant impact. We saw it with Terrence West and Towson from a year ago. Jimmy Garoppolo certainly at Eastern Illinois. These are some guys who can have game-changing influence in this postseason.
Yeah, get to know these names well. Marshawn Coperidge out of Illinois State. There's a reason why they only lost one game. It's because of his performance there. And John Robertson, if you don't think he can throw, go ahead and ask Anisha's alma mater, Syracuse. He almost beat them opening week of the season. He's a guy that could be in that Jimmy Garoppolo mode where NFL scouts take a look at him if he has a great postseason. Give some credit to R.J. Harris, the wide receiver, playmaker, and phenom for University of New Hampshire. They're the #1 seed. He's their go-to guy.
Here's how it works. A 24-team field. 11 teams earn automatic bids. The Ivy League, which has an undefeated champion in Harvard, does not participate. The SWAC champion and the SWAC championship game participant also do not participate because that conference championship game coincides with the first round. The top 8 seeds, the ones you just saw, they all receive first-round byes and will host second-round games. The rest of the field chosen by a selection committee. Robert Hill is the chairman of the FCS Selection Committee. We welcome him in. And Robert, let's start at the top. What gave New Hampshire the edge over North Dakota State as the #1 seed?
Well, it was very, very close in a much-discussed situation, but we felt like that New Hampshire, after losing their first game of the year against an FBS opponent, went undefeated the remainder of the season, whereas North Dakota State lost a conference game during the middle or midway through their conference season. So we felt like that New Hampshire had the better of the two in terms of consistency, and we went with New Hampshire.
It was the Missouri Valley Conference leading the way with 5 teams headlined by North Dakota State. The Colonial right there with 4. New Hampshire, the #1 overall seed. So between the Missouri Valley and the Colonial, that's more than a third of the field.
Emerging conference of Missouri Valley. The Colonial has a record. They've had 6 teams make it in the tournament.
You see with the Missouri Valley and the Colonial is 9 teams in this field. And I think when it comes to playoff time, if you work by that theory of iron sharpens iron, all the programs that come out of those 2 conferences are very well battle-tested getting into this scenario. You could make the argument that they beat each other up, but I think there's a good possibility that you have the national champion, not just because of numbers, but the road they had to travel to get to this point, to have the national champion come out of one of those 2 programs.
I'm thinking back to last year, your champion, North Dakota State from the Missouri Valley, runner-up Towson, Colonial, New Hampshire, another semifinalist from the Colonial. So past his prologue here, those conferences have been pretty good, at least in recent memory. All right, if you want to set your DVRs or know where to fire up these games, first and second round games on ESPN3. As for the quarterfinals, December 12th, 8 Eastern. ESPN2 will air one of the games. December 13th, noon Eastern, one of the quarterfinal games will be on ESPN, the other 2 on ESPN3. You can use the Watch ESPN app. The semifinals on ESPN2 and ESPNU, and the championship game played in Frisco, Texas, January 10th, 1 Eastern on ESPN2. I was cheering from teams that got it. Along came a spider, Richmond football. We are in. Morgan State will come to Robins Stadium Saturday at 1 p.m. All right. Hey, if you want to watch any of these FCS playoff games, ESPN3, ESPN2, ESPN, ESPNU, might even throw a game on the Ocho.